Okay. Aaron posts on here, Pastor Stevie says, what do you say to those who would say that belief in transubstantiation and belief that the disciples believed and taught that as well?
Well, transubstantiation is problematic just in the context of Jesus giving communion to the disciples at the very beginning. Check this out. This is in the gospel. Let's do Luke's gospel, and let me find it here. It says in verse 19 of chapter 22, and he took bread and gave thanks and broke it and gave it to them, saying, this is my body, which is given for you. Do this in remembrance of me. And in verse 20, he says, likewise, he also took the cup after supper, saying, this cup is the new covenant in my blood, which is shed for you. And obviously, again, do this in remembrance of me. The problem with transubstantiation is that when Jesus was standing there with a piece of bread in his hand, holding it out to these guys, his body was there. He didn't reach out with his arm and say, here, take a bite. It wasn't that kind of thing. And the idea that the bread would be turned into Jesus's body at that point is just nonsensical, because Jesus's body is standing right in front of them. And so that doesn't make any kind of sense at all. And the same thing with the blood. With the blood, Jesus didn't, tap into a vein and drip it into a cup and then pass it around to these guys.
Right.
And the place where Jesus's blood was inside his body at that point. And so there's not a disciple that was standing there, or sitting there at the Last Supper who was taking Jesus, not taking Jesus figuratively in that sense. They would understand what he was talking about. So what he's holding up is a piece of bread, and the idea behind it is this represents my body. And so you have similes and you have metaphors throughout the Bible. So for example, Jesus says, this is my body, this is my blood. Jesus also said that he was a door. So is he 6'8" and 3 feet wide with a handle down here on the bottom right side? No. What he's using is he's using a word picture. He said that he's the good shepherd. Not one time do you ever see Jesus with sheep. And so again, he's using a metaphor in that instance for how he treats people. And you can go through, Jesus said that he was a grain of wheat. Jesus said, there's all these metaphors that and similes that Jesus used throughout his ministry, and nobody takes those things and says that he was not speaking in a figurative fashion. In fact, if you don't take Jesus as speaking figuratively here, you're not taking him literally.
Right.
And it's it's something that you need to keep in mind. And so usually when somebody's into transubstantiation, that's where I just take them to the Last Supper. And that's where communion started. That's where the Lord's Supper started. And it's obviously not a piece of his flesh that he's given to them. And it's obviously not his blood that he's given to them. It's not, nothing. His flesh is there, his blood's there. It's all inside him. So that's what I do that.
All right, Aaron, thanks for posting. Hopefully that helps you, man.